Welcome, everyone. Let's dive right into this discussion on the fascinating shift we're witnessing. US hegemony is seemingly over, and the global south is stepping up in a big
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. Right. It's almost like the old order is crumbling and new alliances are emerging. Tell me, what are the key ideas here?
Well, the central theme is how nations in the global south are defying Washington's control. And it's not just about economics or military might, it's a comprehensive political and cultural push.
Got it. So, we're talking about a realignment of power, where nations are actively resisting old forms of domination, correct?
Exactly. It's like, the narrative that the US held for so long is now being contested by nations pushing for their own version of development and sovereignty.
Right. And this idea is strongly reflected in what Dr. Ezequiel Bistoletti is putting forward, isn't it? I mean, his background as a political scientist and lecturer really gives weight to his perspective.
Yep, absolutely. Dr. Bistoletti, who's based in Berlin but works with the University of Buenos Aires, brings a unique perspective. His approach is quite incisive. It challenges traditional political myths that have long been propagated in mainstream discussions.
I find it interesting how he integrates both academic and practical viewpoints. For instance, his YouTube channel, Demolishing Political Myths, really highlights misconceptions, right?
Yeah, it's like he's dismantling these narratives piece by piece, particularly the idea that US influence is a permanent fixture.
Yeah, that's compelling. And speaking of disassembling narratives, what specific mechanisms does he point to that suggest US hegemony is in decline?
Well, he argues that the global south is not only economically recalibrating itself, but also politically mobilizing against external pressures. It's like they're tired of being seen as dependent states, and they're embracing multipolarity.
Right? And it's not just about rejecting traditional alliances, it's about forging new ones that are more, how should we say, equitable and grounded in mutual respect.
Exactly. And it's interesting to note the cultural dimension here, too. Many of these nations are reclaiming their historical narratives, their identity, instead of being subjugated under a singular dominant narrative.
Absolutely. So, are we looking at this as just a power shift or as a broader socio-political transformation?
I'd say it's a bit of both, right? It's this systemic transformation. On one hand, you have economic structures like trade and investment shifting away from a purely American influence, and on the other, political discourse is now more pluralistic.
Makes sense. I wonder though, don't you think that while these shifts are promising, they're also fraught with challenges? I mean, transitioning from a unipolar to a multipolar world is never straightforward.
Oh, definitely. It's like trying to balance a seesaw that's been weighed down for decades. There are growing pains in redefining alliances, and the global south is navigating internal disparities as well.
Yeah, true. Right? And sometimes I think that the rhetoric might be a bit too optimistic. While the defiant stance is admirable, do you think the global power structures can really realign without significant conflict?
That's a fair critique. You see, the transformation isn't without its friction. There's a tension between the old guard, those institutions deeply embedded in US policy, and these rising forces. It's not a clean or peaceful
Exactly.
shift.
And I guess that's where we see these narratives clash. The traditional media and political analysts often depict these new alignments as chaotic, even dangerous, while others see it as a necessary corrective to decades of imbalance.
Exactly, and this duality is at the heart of the discussion. Dr. Bistoletti, for instance, pushes back against a simplistic view of international relations. Instead, he posits that defiance is a rational response to entrenched mechanisms of control.
Right? And this is greatly influenced by historical contexts. For example, think of how post-colonial states have long been trying to reclaim autonomy. Now, with modern technology and communication, that defiance takes on new forms.
Yeah, it's kind of like rewriting a very old script with fresh evidence and voices. The global south is not just reacting, it's actively proposing alternatives.
Yeah, that's very evocative. And what's intriguing is the strategic use of platforms like YouTube to disseminate these ideas directly to the public without gatekeepers. How do you see that playing into this shift?
Oh, for sure, it's a game changer. Platforms like YouTube allow direct communication and mobilization. Dr. Bistoletti's work on his channel bypasses traditional media, so his message reaches a more diverse audience, particularly in regions that feel misrepresented.
Definitely. Right. And that also democratizes the conversation about global power. It gives a voice to the previously marginalized perspectives.
Exactly. And it changes the dynamics of how political debates are held. Rather than waiting for academic journals or mainstream broadcasts, people can now engage in real time, challenge narratives, and even mobilize political
Yeah,
movements.
that's quite revolutionary. Now, I'm curious, how do you think this evolution, where the global south defies traditional American hegemony, will impact, say, international economic policies?
Well, it could lead to an era where economic policies are based more on regional alliances rather than a one size fits all approach dictated by Western norms. We're already seeing trade pacts that try to level the playing field.
That's interesting. But isn't there a risk that in challenging US dominance, some of these nations might end up aligning with other heavyweights that could um, create equally rigid power blocks?
That's a valid point. It's not a perfect solution. There's a chance that, in defying one hegemon, they might unintentionally cycle into another form of domination. However, the hope is that through multipolarity, checks and balances become more effective
Exactly.
than
That's
the
the dream,
old
huh?
unilateral systems.
Yeah, it's like switching from a monopoly to a competitive market, but the transition can be rocky and unpredictable.
Yup, indeed. And while the Global South's defiance marks an inspirational step toward autonomy, it's also a call for more nuanced strategies in international diplomacy and economic planning.
Absolutely, I agree. So, in your view, what are the long term implications if this shift continues as predicted?
Well, I think it could alter not only diplomatic ties, but also redefine the way global issues, like climate change or human rights, are addressed. By being less dominated by one central narrative, there's room for a richer dialogue that better represents diverse interests.
Yeah, that's the hope. It's fascinating. Like, imagine a world where policy decisions come from a genuinely multipolar dialogue, where every region's unique challenges are heard. But how do we ensure that such a shift doesn't just replace one form of dominance with another?
That's a challenge indeed. It requires robust institutions, transparent dialogue, and a willingness among states to compromise and collaborate. It's sort of like building a new framework from the ground up, which is inherently messy, but also full of promise.
Totally agree. I can see this sparking a lot of academic debates and policy reforms. Do you think this conversation might pressure traditional powers to, reflect and possibly reform their approaches?
Absolutely, and maybe that's the unintended benefit. When established powers see these new alliances and ideologies gaining traction, it could catalyze internal reforms or a more balanced approach to international relations.
Yeah, that seems likely. Well, it's certainly an exciting time to watch, but also a period of uncertainty. The evolution from global hegemony to a multipolar world is not without its risks.
Totally agree. And while the narrative of US hegemony being over might be bold, it's a wake up call that the world is changing and diverse voices are finally being heard.
Yep, could not have said it better. Thanks for this in depth chat. It's given us a lot to think about regarding global power, shifting alliances, and the new dynamics of international politics.
Absolutely. Thanks for engaging in this conversation. Here's to keeping an eye on how these geopolitical trends continue to evolve in real time